92.7. So it's been a week after the inauguration of the transitional team. Now, they're supposed to have started work, yes, of course, on Wednesday they met, but there's been lots of issues, back and forth. So is the current government engaged in some recruitment? Or is the current government engaged in some doctoring of the handing over notes? But why don't we have all the handing over notes, even though the Transitional Act indicates that the handing over notes should be submitted to the Administrator General 30 days before the elections? This evening on Eye on the Seat, we focus on the transition process. We look at the processes so far and the way forward. My name is Winston, and this program is sponsored by TV3 Network with support from Star Ghana, strengthening transparency, accountability, and responsiveness through transformational national development and accountable public services for all Ghanaians. This is Eye on the Seat on TV3 and also live on 3FM 92.7 in Accra with me, Winston Manam. My guest for this evening from my far left is Professor Kojo Okra, who is Director of the Center for Global Education, Indiana University in the U.S., and then David Yarrow is Administrator General of the Presidential Estate Unit under the Transitional Act 2012. Later on, we'll be joined by Professor Bafraj Mendia, who is former Senior Governance Advisor to the United Nations Mission in Liberia. So, Prof. Mr. Yarrow, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
Good. So let's start off with you, Professor Kojo Okra. Now, I believe you've been monitoring the process. So what's your assessment of the transitional process?
Well, so far, I would say so far so good. So far so good in the sense that after the elections, you know, a lot of people had mixed feelings, thinking that something was going to happen. And I give kudos to the outgoing government for making it possible for this transition team to be put in place. And having said that, I cannot conclusively assess it because all that I know about it is those news items that we are hearing. For example, some people are saying that the outgoing government is trying to doctor the transition notes.
You have a challenge with that?
Say that again?
You have a challenge with that?
Have I challenged it?
You have a problem with that?
Oh, do I have a problem? I mean, if it is true, then I have a problem with that. But I cannot testify to it, whether it is true or not. And number two, some people are also saying, I mean, journalists are saying that some recruitments are taking place in some sensitive areas. For example, immigration, custom, the army, and things like that. You know, the only problem I might have with that would be that if it is true that the outgoing government is trying to put some party faithfuls into those sensitive positions, it means that when the incoming government comes, these people are going to maybe frustrate their attempt to put things in place the way they want.
Well, talking about that one, I mean, the spokesperson for the government side of the transitional team says that the only recruitment going on is the Ghana Armed Forces. Okay. And that should be concluded after the new government is taking over. On the bit about the doctrine of handing over notes, now I spoke to John Boyd on 3FM, where I do the morning show. Now, he could not substantiate that. What he said was that they had delayed, they had violated the constitutional provisions, and so that hasn't been done. But let's get to Mr. David Yarrow. I'll get back to you because David Yarrow is the Administrator General of the Presidential Estate Unit under the Transitional Act of 2012. So, Mr. Yarrow, you are the one supposed to be handing over or to give the handing over notes to the incoming government's transitional team. Why are they not ready?
Yeah, well, let me say that I'm quite a little surprised that they are not yet ready because the arrangements are put in place before the period that went ahead and negotiated that, look, now that I'm sure that the handover notes will be ready, I will plead with the Office of the President to give safe custody to them. When the President-elect comes into office, I will come for them and hand over because my office is not safe.
What are the arrangements you put in place?
No, so as I said, first, we had already gone through we had revised the template for reporting and to make sure that we captured every government property and assets. And then after that, we made sure that a team was set in place known as a quality assurance team to go through and make sure that all the information that we had asked in the reporting template have been met. Then after that, I then wrote that, well, now that we have finished everything, every ministry should now forward their finalized handover notes straight to the office of the
Hold
president.
on 1 minute. So that team that you set up, they went through all the handing over notes of the ministries, departments, and agencies.
Yes.
So are you suggesting that all of them were ready before the elections?
What I'm saying, yes. Well, as far as I am concerned, but as I'm saying, when we finished our part, in fact, I did this in conjunction.
I want to understand your part that you finished.
Yes.
What did you finish?
Yes. When we finished taking the chief directors and other regional coordinating directors through the preparation of the handover notes. I did that in conjunction with the head of local government service, head of the civil service. So when we finished, I now instructed that this time I have facilitated, everything is set. Now send your finalized handover notes straight to the office of the president. Because if you look at the law, I am actually not supposed to be preparing or to be seen to the preparation of handover.
But they are supposed to give it to you.
Yes, they are supposed to do and give it to me. And then as I said,
30 days before the election.
yes. So when we did this, then I went ahead to negotiate. I said, well, I don't have security in
Why
my
do you
office.
negotiate? They're supposed to give it to you.
No, not the giving. The idea was that they were to give. But I said, if they are ready, keep them because my office is not safe. I don't have security detail because of the sea breeze. The locks in my offices are not secured. And so I said, okay, keep them safely at the office of the president. And then when the time comes, you just hand them over to me.
So at that point when you were asking them to keep them safe,
yes,
did you know that all of them were done?
I know, well, I didn't know, but I assumed that everything was done.
You
because,
assumed that all of
yes,
them were
because I had written. And so if any ministry didn't do it, it was not more my responsibility to go to that ministry.
But if you had it, as the law stated, that you were the one to hand it over, and so if they had brought it to you, you would have known that all of them were ready or not.
No, they hadn't brought it, as I said.
No, I'm just only suggesting to you that
yes,
if you had received it,
if I had
you would have
received
known.
it, I would have known. But I didn't insist to because I had assumed that they would finish, and I had negotiated that they should be there for safekeeping.
Couldn't they have, worked on your office to make sure that it was safe?
Well, that would have meant taking another, action, looking for money to put this, to do this, to do this. So I just said,
because you need to be the one to hand it over.
Yes.
You need it for safety.
Yeah, but also the president needs to hand it over to me so that I will hand over. Do you see? So I said, okay, instead of handing it over to me today, kindly keep it in your offices. When the time comes, I will come and you give it to me and I'll hand over.
Did you make an attempt to go for it after the elections?
After the elections?
Yes.
No, the problem was still persistent.
What problem was persisting?
As I said, my office wasn't safe.
Yes, but after the elections, after the transition team, because the law says 20 for
yes,
after yes. Did you make an attempt to go for it?
I went to talk to the chief director to find out the situation. It was there that I got to know that one or two ministries hadn't finished.
Not one or two ministries, only 8.
Well,
have theirs ready.
No, actually, maybe they just said 8 because I remember
you handed over 8.
The 10 regional coordinating council had all submitted. So it should have been more than 8. But only whatever it is, if it was 8, well, I wouldn't have known because after I have directed them to submit their final documents to the office of the president, now they had become the property of the office of the president until they will then hand them over back to me. So it was now left to the chief director and the office of the president to find out from the ministries that were not acting why they were still not acting. So all this time I had no idea that.
Why should they find out? You were the administrator general.
No, but I had, as I told you, the arrangement is that it should emanate from the office of the president to me. So they are the property of the president. So until they are handed over to me, they don't become.
Yes, but until they hand it over to you, you should know that they are all ready. But let me just introduce Professor Bafo Ajimendua, who is former senior governance advisor to the UN mission in Liberia. Prof, good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Good. So I believe you've been monitoring and looking at the transitional processes. So what's your assessment of the whole process?
Well, so far I think the process has started well after being inaugurated by the president and the president-elect. Of course, we follow the news and we know that the team from the incoming government has registered some concerns about not receiving all the required documents. And also, they've expressed some concerns about certain acts of the current government in terms of recruitment, appointments, and contracts. Those are some legal issues I think we need to tease out. But besides that, I think they've been good. But you see, it's not surprising that there are some concerns expressed on both sides. After all, this is the very first time that we are transiting from one party ruling government to another. The last one was from a party to itself, so it wasn't really challenging. If there were problems, we didn't know. So these hitches personally are not really, they are not new to me. I expected them.
You expected them?
Because
there was a law to curb all of
this.
I
know. The reason is that we are here to establish conventions. You see, in the U.S., for instance, so far as I know, since the elections and Trump was announced the winner, you don't hear of Obama initiating any major policy. He is not signing contracts. In America, they call the lame duck president. The lame duck president. So he's not really expected to act, But this is not constitutionally required. It's a convention that has been established over years by their democratic practice. In our case, we started with this new law effective only 2012 or so. And, so we haven't really, for instance, whether the incumbent government has a right to sign contracts. Legally, sure, because the government is effective until the 6th or 7th of January.
The 6th of January, midnight.
But common sense will tell you that, look, if you know you are going out, you shouldn't engage in any serious business.
Well, they say the running of government mustn't come to a standstill.
Of course, it shouldn't.
Administratively,
administratively, it shouldn't.
So if contracts that have to be signed, they would sign them.
Of course, that's what I'm saying. They have every right to do it because there's no law that stops them. But if we have established the convention over time, then of course, we will expect the government to behave according to the convention. But because we do not have the convention, that's why I think these teething problems are emerging.
Let me get to Professor Okra. Now, what happens in the U.S.? When there's a new government coming, what happens?
Well, sometimes it seems to me that we here in Ghana, Africa, sometimes we bite more than we can chew. Why am I saying this?
Tell me.
We try to take everything Western, everything American, hook, line, and sinker. In the United States, you will have the NAPA, National Academy for Public Administration. This is an institution that is fixed so that during the campaign, this party will select their own transition team. So Akufo-Addo would have selected his transition team during the campaign. And then the government in power also has transition councils that are there already. If it is about defense, you have a council for that. If it is about energy, you have a council for that. So that immediately after the outgoing president, like Obama, becomes a lame duck, Mama is now a lame duck. He doesn't have to function effectively.
In Ghana, he has to function effectively.
That's right. No, you can't function like Professor Ajimendua was saying. There are certain contracts you cannot continue to sign. But you see, there is one thing. Let me take you back.
But that is not enshrined in our Constitution.
It is
not enshrined. The Constitution says the government's tenure of office ends on the midnight before 7th January.
That is true.
So he works to them.
That is true. But common sense and convention will tell you that certain things do not need to be done. If you do it, then people are going to talk. Like, let me refer you to ex-President Kufuor, a day before he left
But
office.
the common sense approach you talk about will tell you that Ghana needs to work. And
Ghana
so if there are
needs-
things
no-
that have to be done within the
doubt
period,
about
they
that.
have to be done.
No doubt about that. For example, if people had recruited teachers, nobody would raise a finger. But if you start recruiting, even though you said that it is a process, and I agree.
Yes,
and
I'm only giving you what the government side of the
okay.
transitional team says.
Okay, so
Yeah.
now let me go back to
The
the
US,
question you asked me in the US. As I am saying, if we were in the US, some of these things would not have arisen. Why? Because I told you we have the NAPA, the National the National Academy of Public Administration, so that if there is a problem, we would not even be sitting here talking about it, because it is an institutional organization, and they will go to
We have the
them.
Administrator General.
Yes,
Seated here.
We have the Administrator General, and
Supposed to have everything you need about the transition. If it's handing over notes you need, he has them.
Yeah,
You
in the
go to him, you
US,
get it. If
you
it's
have
anything, government assets, he has them.
Right, we have the Administrator of General Services, and
Administrator
the counterpart is the
Seated
Administrator
here.
General.
We'll get back to him. You
And
continue.
now
We'll
the
get to him.
Administrator General is here telling us that even his office is not equipped to the point that he cannot even collect the handing over notes and keep them in his office. I don't even know if he has an office.
He does.
You do have an
That's a
office?
4x4.
Okay,
Small
but
office.
Yes, you have an office, don't you?
Yes.
But it is not
that's,
furnished.
At the castle.
At the
Yeah.
castle. So why are you saying you cannot? Okay. So you see, that is the way it is. So sometimes when we make reference to the United States in everything that we do, I think we go overboard. Because look at a country that has been a democratic country for over 200 years.
So what's the point? We shouldn't be going through this process?
We should, however,
Go ahead.
we should cut our coat according to the material we have.
How do we cut it?
We cut it by using common sense sometimes, because, as I said,
Common sense such as?
common sense such as if I'm leaving office tomorrow, I don't sign a contract today.
There are no conventions.
That is, I mean, that is conventional. That is common sense. Because if you do that, and you know what, I don't know, this is not a political arena where I'm going to say this and that to make people think, oh, he is here, he's there. I don't belong to anywhere. But
Yes.
I still believe.
This is a free platform, so you can say what
Okay.
you want to say. But my point is that in Ghana, like you talk about, we deal with laws. And so once the law is there, Professor Bafra Gbendia will tell you, once you have the law, you deal with it. So if we think that should be the case, why don't we probably enact laws that says, after an election, you do not sign new contracts? And that is, then we know you don't do it.
No,
But until then-
I didn't say that. I was making a reference to Professor Ajimedi.
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that he knows that.
and what
But-
I'm saying
but
is
let me
that
just get to Professor Bafra Gbendia. I'll get back to
Okay.
you, Professor Kojo Okra. But Professor Bafra Gbendia, here we are. That's the law. The law doesn't prevent you from signing contracts. Can you then fault a government that goes ahead to sign contracts around this time?
See, the reason I'm very soft on government is simply because of what you said, that there are no laws, there are no regulations, and we haven't had enough time to establish the conventions. You see, if this not happened 3, 4, 5 times, even without the law, we know what behavior to expect.
Yes.
But in this case, we don't. In fact, this office that you are referring to has been in existence barely, what, 2 years? 2 years?
4 years.
4 years?
Yes,
4 years, but effectively 2 years. And even for the 4 years, they don't have what you may call an effective functioning office. He was here some few weeks ago with me, and he bemoaned the fact that he has to even hire Okadas, and his wife's car is what he was using to go around. So we know that he's not in the best of shape. But the point is that because we like you said, if we're really not happy with what's going on, I agree with you that maybe after this process, the next parliament should look at the law again and precisely prescribe what needs to be done once election takes place and a government is going out. That will solve all these problems. So I think for now, we can be a little bit soft on these teams because it's a very...
But why do we have to be soft when the things that are supposed to be done are not being done?
Well, in terms of the submission of the...
Yes, in terms of the submission, those haven't been done.
That one, I think we should hold them accountable. That
Exactly
one, I have no
the
problems.
point.
I have no problems with that. But I was talking about government behavior, which has not been prescribed by law, and therefore they can claim that, look, until 6th or 7th of January, I'm still the government, and therefore have to function. But certainly, as I've said earlier, and my colleague said, I mean, common sense will tell you that if you are outgoing, certainly you don't engage.
But what problems would these contracts cause the new government?
We don't, first of all, I don't know the nature of the contract and how much is involved. I don't. But also, I don't know the kinds of recruitment that is going in the security agencies, because I've read that one former top security person has been expressing some anger about Osaf Marvel, even referring to the fact that we are recruiting people in the security
These were
agencies.
published. I mean, I've seen the
Exactly.
the advertisements.
It surprised me.
Yes.
It surprised me that it might be termed something secret. It's no
Yes, 'cause
secret.
they're public. I mean, they're published. I have seen them.
Exactly. But if they have these kinds of concerns, I think they have a forum where they can resolve these concerns. So I don't think these are serious issues that we have to really bemoan.
Yes, but,
you know.
before I get to Mr. Yarrow, because I still need to get to him, but Professor Okra, should these things always come into the public domain?
You see, this is it. If we all come with clean hearts and we all think about Ghana and we make Ghana the priority, some of these things will be solved amicably. The fact of the matter is, when this 2012 Act 845 was instituted, established, then in 2016, there was amendment, right? In the United States, there was this transition law that was established in 1963.
Well, the amendment has not been passed into law. I mean, the president hasn't assented.
Okay.
So we're still dealing with the 2012
No, so the fact is that we hear what we are saying. We are not accusing anybody.
Yeah.
There are loopholes that we are identifying. So once we identify the loopholes, we put it there. And then if it is a committee, if it is parliament, then we can make the amendment. Because even in the United States, they had amendment from 1963, 1998, and then 2000. So there is always amendment. It is only a person who doesn't want improvement that does not change.
Yes, but Professor Okra, can't the leaders, can't the two teams sort these issues between them, and rather than always run to the media?
And this is what I said from the beginning. Now that we know of two teams, there is conflict, why don't we start considering the fact that we can set up what we call NAPA, the National Academy for Public Administration. And so if there is...
Wouldn't that be an importation of the U.S. ideas that you say we shouldn't be bringing into our system?
I said we should not take everything hook, line, and sinker.
You're taking one of them.
That's right, we have to, because if
How
not...
would that help our system?
If not, then we have to
There's
do
an
away...
Administrator General.
Then we have to do away with democracy.
It's seated right here in front
That's
of
right.
beside you.
And once we have the democracy and it is fashioned the American way, then we have to go to them and ask why and how they were able to get to where they are now. We
practice a hybrid system. And so it might not necessarily be an American way. But getting to you, Mr. Yarrow, looking at how things are going, do you get the impression that maybe government was just not prepared for this kind of a transition?
Well, from the revelation I had when we met last Friday, and the government side said the Handover news were not ready, I was shocked myself, because as I said all along, I knew that everything was set. Even at a point, okay, that was when the transition had started. The chief director called and said they were now trying to bring some of the Handover news to me. And I said, oh, I've earlier explained that my place is not so secure. So leave them. When the time comes, I'll just pick them and listen. But he added that about 2 or 3 of them are not yet ready. That was where I said, but if we are directed that they should all report, send their final documents to you, and a ministry hasn't sent its final report to you, why didn't you follow up to find out why they are not doing this? Because it's no more my duty to go to the ministry or to find out, have you sent this or have you sent it? I only facilitated. And after the facilitation, that is the end of it. the baby is that of the office of the president. It becomes my baby after they have handed everything over to me. So here, in fact, if I had security in my office, I would have known that, because they would have handed over some of them and left others, and I would have known. For example, yesterday, finally I was called and I met a representative of the transition team from the other side, the incoming government. And I formally handed over the handing notes
which ones have you handed over now?
from Ministry of Finance.
You've handed a finance minister.
Yeah, yesterday.
So that becomes 9.
Yeah. Well, I think so now, yes.
Because
That
okay,
become-
so you didn't hand over the previous 8.
No, we did a symbolic handing over.
When you say
But the
symbolic,
press-
what do you mean?
Well, that before we rose, then both teams said, well, the law says they should be handed over to me to hand over to the district. So these 8 which are there, I should come, take them from the government side and hand over to them.
So you handed over the 8 symbolically.
Yes, I did.
And you've now gone ahead to hand over the finance ministry.
Yes.
So that makes it
yesterday
9.
Well, I hope so. That makes
How
it
many
9.
more handing over notes are you expecting?
Well, because in all there should have been about 34.
34.
Yeah, so if...
That's 24 ministries and then the regional
and then
coordinating
10
council.
regional coordinating councils. You know.
And only 9 of them have come to you.
Well, yes.
Professor Bafadimandia, would you say that maybe the government wasn't, because it wasn't ready for transition to another government?
No doubt at all in my mind. I don't think the government expected to lose elections. Why, I don't know. But you know, the law requires these notes to be handed over 30 days prior to the elections.
Yes.
30 days prior to the elections. So if only 9 out of 35 have responded, then of course there's a problem. And that confirms your own point, that perhaps the government wasn't really expecting to lose the elections. But this is a lesson all of us must learn. When you go into elections, whether you are 100% sure of winning or 100% sure of losing, they are irrelevant. The law says towards elections, please 30 days before the election, submit. So you have to submit. If you win, of course, they are all your property again. Now, if you lose, then in this case, you won't be sitting here trying to figure out, and these transition teams will not be having these kinds of conflicts. So I think, again, I would say that because of the recency of this particular process, we can tamper justice with mercy, as people will say, and just hope that learning from this experience.
Don't we do that so much in this country?
I know we do, my brother.
I mean, what
know.
is wrong is wrong. What is right is
But
right.
this gentleman who's supposed to be the main facilitator of this process is not even equipped. He's not empowered materially to do his job. Human resource. Look, the other day we sat here, he had only about 2 or 3 staff. He didn't have a driver. He didn't have a vehicle. He hires Okada to send things. How can such an office
I think the Okada bit was figurative. He doesn't have
he said
it
it before.
No, Mr. Yaro, I mean, the Okada bit was...
No, it wasn't exaggerated. It was
We're
real.
just kidding with the Okada
but
bit.
let me say that.
From here, we're just kidding with the Okada
Yes,
bit.
yes.
He doesn't hire. He doesn't hire.
This has legal results. As I've talked now, I've taken delivery of 2 vehicles from the office.
Since you came public to complain about yours.
Office of the president.
Okay.
So last
That's
week,
progress.
That's progress.
So I'm particularly happy that you have those vehicles. But Professor Okra, what is wrong is wrong. Why are we always tempering justice with mercy here?
I am perfectly with you. You know what? This whole discussion, I think, rests with 2 major things. Rule of law and the Transition Act, period. If we will operate within the tenets of rule of law and respect an act that has been passed in Parliament, statutes, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about some of these things. You see, that was the reason why I was saying that if we are actually going to practice democracy, we call ourselves the beacon of democracy in Africa and all that, we have to put the right things in place, the right structures in place. So
Talking about the right structures.
yes.
I want to go to Mr. Yaro. Hold on 1 minute, because I'll be coming to you. But Mr. Yaro, who is to crack the whip? If they do not do what the law says they do, what happens?
well, that is a question all of us have to ponder, because the law doesn't empower me to crack the whip.
Who does the law empower to crack the whip then?
Well, I when I read through
I've been struggling to see that. Have you seen
yes,
that?
so it's not in the law. That's why I said I'm particularly happy that it hasn't, the amended law hasn't been given presidential assent, and I'm praying that it should, so that after 90 days it will go back to Parliament. And
You don't want the president to assent to it, so it goes back to Parliament.
I'm praying that it
So
should,
that
and
they
so
can
that
sweep
these
it,
loopholes will be looked at. Otherwise, if it is accepted now, it's going to take another 4 or 5 years before we think about amendments. And then we can't be working with this type of law, you know. There are a lot of loopholes.
But if there are a lot of loopholes, and if they came, I'm sure they came to you
No, that
for you to make, suggestions.
I complained. I said when they listen, Parliamentary Select Committee on Legislation, they met at a hotel. I think it was sponsored by IE and other things. I was in my office. Nobody referred to me.
Nobody called you?
Nobody called me.
You didn't make any input?
I only got to hear it on the radio that Parliament passed this thing. So I was eager to know. And even you were the first to tell me that, oh, I've been given some powers. And I looked and saw that was all. And I remember I said, as far as I was concerned, that amendment wasn't suitable to me at all. Because
so,
first, how do you expect me to give administrative and technical assistance to the transition team? And I'm not a member. If the transition team is meeting and they decide that they should invite me, what happens? This, when it was being inaugurated, the office of the president had to send a message to me informing me that it will be inaugurated. So I'm invited, and I went. The first meeting after the inauguration, the office of the president again sent me an invitation letter. So if somebody forgets to send me an invitation letter, what happens? I'm not there. So, and then, so that's the first flaw. I'm not a member of the transition team. As I said, secondly, if there are any breaches here, I don't know what to do. As you are saying, if even I hadn't arranged that they should keep the handover notes safely in the office of the president, and then later, we're 30 days before the election, and they don't bring them, and I say, I haven't received them. What next?
Professor Okra, if I get to that question, so that's where the problem is.
Yeah, that is what the problem is.
Nobody can crack the whip in the ZAP.
Do you know something?
Tell me.
We are always putting round pegs in square holes or square pegs in round holes. Look, we sit in a country, I just mentioned National Academy for Public Administration. We have people who have degrees in public administration. Ask me, how many of them have been recruited or have been employed to do this public administration thing? Nobody. We are always...
You know that for a fact, or you're guessing?
Okay, I am guessing. I am guessing. But...
Because I don't know that for a fact.
No. Okay, yes. I don't know that for a fact, but I think that I will not look down upon people who have degrees in those things to be making the mess that is being made. And this thing has been going on in this country. It seems to me that when we say somebody is a politician, anybody at all can become a politician. If anybody at all can become a politician, you have to seek advice from a political scientist. You know, we put a lawyer as a minister for health. And then Koko Sapon was a lawyer and he was a minister for health. Have you ever seen a medical doctor being put in place there as Attorney General? No.
A minister is only an administrative head.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't mean that a lawyer can't be an administrative head. He's a representative of the president.
Yes, you can be administrative head, but don't you think it would be a better idea if you have an idea of what is going on within that particular sector ministry?
You have an idea of what happens within health, don't you?
You know what?
You have an idea, don't you?
I do have, but I don't think...
You know how the health sector is supposed to be like, don't you?
I would rather be a minister for education.
That you're a doctor doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best person to deal with health ministry.
Why not?
No, that you're a medical doctor doesn't mean you're the best person to deal with
if a medical doctor is a politician, or a medical doctor may have another background, but you cannot put somebody there as a minister for health if the person doesn't even know what gynecologist is, if the person doesn't know what IV is, and that kind of thing. What I'm saying is that...
the Director General of the Ghana Health Service and the medical directors. He supervises all of them.
You're talking about the ministry.
Yes, he supervises them.
Well...
There he is. He's a supervisor. Anyway, to take a short break on that note, but then later we'll come back and continue. But this is Eye on the Seat on TV3 and also live on 3FM 92.7 right here in Accra. And I am Winston. Eye on the Seat is sponsored by TV3 Network Limited with support from Star Ghana. Star Ghana strengthening transparency, accountability, and responsiveness through transformational national development and accountable public services for all Ghanaians. So we're talking about transition. Getting to you, Professor Bafwa Jimendia. How do we go about it now? How do we make sure that a transition is able to work?
Well, for the present process, I think the two teams should agree to work closely, keep certain things to themselves. If there are differences, they should resolve them before coming out. You know why? Because it's not good for us as a country to expose these weaknesses the way we are doing it. And these weaknesses are, as I said earlier, only because perhaps of the recency of the process. The Administrator General has not been empowered enough materially and otherwise, financially, to do his work. We all know that. But I think we can use the current process to strengthen it. All the loopholes that we are discovering in this process should be noted. And I believe the Administrator General is really keeping notes on this. All the comments that are coming from interested parties, public commentators, we should take note of all of them.
We'll come back to the way forward, but I just want us to look at the situation. But before you continue, let me get to Mr. Yaro. Mr. Yaro, are you worried about the media reports concerning the transition?
Not so much, because if you attend the meetings of the transition team and the way things are going, then you know that maybe they are being over-exaggerated. Like this issue of Handover notes. I remember I heard both chairmen saying that the government side saying that, well, the Handover notes were not all listened, but he had closed-door discussion with his counterpart, and they had
when you've heard in the media that the Handover notes have been doctored.
Yeah. Well, that one is to be very difficult, because 30-something Handover notes prepared, signed, and you unless maybe those which have not yet been submitted by the ministry. But even then, if the ministry, how are you doctoring it? Because if you follow the template that we design for the Handover notes, you can't doctor anything, because it is specific. If it's projects that you are doing, you tell us what projects you are doing, who contracted those projects, how much is it, who is doing it. If it's an external loan that you have contracted, what was it contracted for? How is it being executed? All these are there. You know, we haven't gone forward to make it simple for the incoming minister. We assume that he doesn't know anything, he's just coming. So we say within 30 days, this is what the minister should be doing, acquaint himself with his ministry. Within 60 days, this is what should be doing. Within 90 days, yes, everybody, actually we took them through.
But taking them through is one thing, meeting them is the other.
No, the drafts, this and that, the quality assurance team went through. We were all sure that that was the final draft, except a few areas that we like transferring the details onto what is called an appendix. So we just said, okay, do this, attach an appendix. These were the minor corrections that we did. So after that, we said, perfect. Okay. Everybody now finalize and send your this to the office of the president. Okay. You know, but let me add that this thing has gradually we will do this. A month ago, I was at Cape Verde, where I attended the West Africa International Conference on Transition Governments, and I was surprised. It's only Ghana that has a transition law. Nigeria, everybody was praising Ghana.
So they're running on conventions?
Yes, everybody
no
was.
Conventions.
No, even some no conventions. They don't have at all. So they were all surprised. Nigeria right now has a draft this thing. They are saying that they are going to call a referendum or some a workshop to look at it. They may be
Are you suggesting we are better than neighbors?
As far as the transition arrangements are concerned, yes. The whole of West Africa.
Because we have a law?
We have a law. That is why
It doesn't make it better,
what we should now do is to make sure that the law works.
I mean, that you have a
but
law
even right
because
now,
our laws are not working
right
here.
now, with the present situation, we are still being envied.
Yes, and law that doesn't make provisions for us to crack the whip is what makes others envy us?
Yes, but, if, as we said, we are all, Ghana is our nation. You don't need to be following people, whipping them to do the right thing.
The right things must be done, checks and balances.
Everybody must know that, like I was saying the other time, that
human beings have a tendency to go wrong.
Yes.
That's why there are checks and balances.
Yes, but...
So there should be one in there.
Yes, there should be one, but you shouldn't allow yourself to be driven to that. Like I was saying the other time that my office had loopholes, but I didn't sit down to say that, because of these loopholes, I wouldn't do anything. I've been put there for a purpose. So I had to find means of going ahead.
Now, Professor Okra, in other jurisdictions, you find out that, they do a little bit of paper. For us over here, we focus so much on paper. Is e-governance the way to go, and will that help our transition?
You know what? What is worth doing is worth doing well. I have said two things. And the first, you took me on that I am insinuating that maybe we are biting too much. Yes. What I'm saying is we live in Africa, we live in Ghana. David was just telling us in other countries they don't have this. Now we have it. What do I mean by what is worth doing is worth doing well? If we are copying from American democracy, there's just around the corner. It's a phone call away. You can call somebody. You can just fly 9.5 hours. You are there. You study it and you bring it back. Now, I have listened to prominent people from both parties. I have heard Osafo Mafu speak. I respect him a lot. I have heard the Lady Minister for Foreign Affairs, Hannah Tete, speak. Sincerely, they all speak like they have this country at heart, and that is what they are doing. We have all these intelligent brains, smart brains. My only piece of advice is that we should start thinking about our nation, Ghana, first, not our parties.
You're suggesting they're not doing that?
That is what I'm saying. I'm saying that
no, you're suggesting they're not thinking about the country. Based on what you've heard them say.
What I heard them say is that they are thinking about the country.
Oh, okay.
And I said I respect these two.
You only read church in the
Yes. Okay. So those following them, if they are the mouthpiece, those following them should do the same, and they should not just come and shed crocodile tears. What they say is what they should do. I keep saying to people, and the other time when I was on one of the studios, I said, whenever you see me mounting the political platform in this country to be voted to become the president of the country, if you think my policies are going to benefit you within the 4 years, don't vote for me. Because I am thinking about our children's children.
Good. So are you saying that e-governance is the way to go or not? Should we be thinking of going e-governance so then we don't have all these problems? You put everything in place and then you just click of a button, you have it, and we are good to go. Is that the way we should be going?
Well, I am not a fan of the EEE stuff.
Oh, okay. What are you a fan of then?
I am a fan of face-to-face.
You like the papers?
Oh, yes, because even as a professor, I don't like the idea of teaching online. Oh, okay. I don't teach online. I want to see my students. I want them to see me. If I have something to hand over, I have to hand over to you. These are the things that are living our body politic and our culture, and that we will discuss that.
We'll discuss that. I still have a last question for you, but let's get Professor
Okay,
Bafaj.
what is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell you when I get back.
Oh, okay.
Professor Bafaj, yeah, the same question to you then. Is e-governance the way to go? Will that solve our problems?
Certainly, it will go a long way in managing this process. For instance, the last time we were here with Mr. Yaro, if Mr. Yaro had the necessary equipment. And he had all the data that he needed. He has a database for government assets, now moving away from the handover notes to the big thing, the assets. Because the last time we met, he indicated that he was trying to put them together, but they were not really getting there because he was short of these kinds of equipment. So if he has all these computers, he has created a database so he can sit in office and know that in the Brong-Ahafo region, there are 25 vehicles, there are 20 houses, there are such a number of motorbikes. And he has all that around. This, managing the process will be much easier. Right now, we're all focused on the handover notes. We are not talking about the other things that need to be handed over to Mr. Yaro for the incoming government.
He says
so
he's in a better position now, more or less, than he was two months ago.
And for instance, the form that he said he has given to them, e-governance will make it easier. They will go to, they will access it on their computers. They will make the inputs. He will sit in his office. The information falls on him. You don't need to waste time to go to the ministries. So I guess I'm saying that as you look forward, look for the experts to come and help you set up a system that will make it possible for you to monitor in between government. You don't even wait till elections. In between governments, you should know how many vehicles the government has in its pool, how many computers we have procured in a particular year, how we are disposing of these things. That is the job he needs to do, and he can better do it if the e-system is in place.
Okay. We need to be wrapping up. I'll get you, Professor Okra, but Mr. Yaro, finally, we need to be wrapping up. What should be done going into transition 2020 to make sure we avoid some of these mistakes?
Yeah, I think immediately after this, a lot of attention should be focused on the Office of the Administrator General. Now, since 2012, when this law was passed, nothing was being heard about the office.
That's right.
And so the problems were lying down. In fact, until I assumed duty 3 months ago and I called a press conference to tell Ghana what the office was about. Many people didn't know about this office. We need to. As he said, when I also enumerated some of my challenges, I talked about a software that
finally,
can help
quickly, because we need to be wrapping up.
Finally, I think that we need to re-look at this law and then make a lot of this, because a lot of changes. Every ministry, for example, has a law backing it to do procurement, has a law backing it to allocate bungalows, has a law to do this thing, and yet I'm supposed to be in charge. So how do you go
How do you do that? We need to look at the law.
Yes.
Finally, in 30 seconds, we're wrapping up.
I support Mr. Yaro that we need to look at the law and strengthen it in view of the many loopholes that are appearing now.
Professor Okra.
I have no problem with that. As I said, we have been talking, we have been expressing our ideas, we have seen the loopholes. What do we need? We need amendments. We need to look at the laws, and then wherever there is a need for amendment, we amend it, and we move on.
But do you by chance want to be president, since you talked about if you're campaigning and you said everything was 4 years?
In 4 years, I don't know.
You don't know?
What? I leave everything in the hands of
Oh my God, you do not know.
Almighty.
Okay,
Yeah.
Professor Kojo Okra, thank you very, very much. Professor Kojo Okra is the Director for the Center for Global Education at Indiana University in the U.S. David Yaro is Administrator General, and Professor Bafo Ajimandua is former Senior Governance Advisor to the United Nations Mission in Liberia. And I am Winston Amma. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Make sure you make a date with me tomorrow morning on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7 from 5:50 to 10 a.m. Have a lovely evening.